Hello, and welcome to Funny Women, a reading of comic poetry by Melissa Balmain, Gail White, and Julie Kane in honor of Women's History Month. This event is sponsored by the SMSU Women's Studies Committee, and I am Susan McLean, a professor of English. A lot of people assume that feminists are not fun, and that poetry is very serious business indeed, but I'm hoping to prove both of those assumptions wrong today. We have a group of readers, including students, faculty, and a vice president of the university, and they'll be introducing themselves later. We will start with the poems of Melissa Balmain, who is the editor of Light, an online journal of light verse. She teaches at the University of Rochester and lives in Rochester, New York, with her husband and 2 children. She has published humor pieces in The New Yorker, The New York Times, Parenting Magazine, and elsewhere. Her first poetry book, Walking In on People, won the 2013 Able News Poetry Book Award. Then we will go on to Gail White. Gail White has edited and published several books of poetry. She grew up in Florida and has spent many years in Louisiana, where she lives with her husband in Breaux Bridge. Her book, The Accidental Cynic, won the 2007-2008 Anita Dorn Memorial Award for Poetry. And we will end with Julie Kane. Julie Kane is from Boston. She attended Cornell University and Boston University and has lived for many years in Louisiana, where she teaches at Northwestern State University. She was the Louisiana Poet Laureate for 2011-2013. And her books include Rhythm and Booze, which won the 2003 National Poetry Series Award, Jazz Funeral, which won the 2009 Donald Justice Poetry Prize, and Paper Bullets, that these poems come from, which came out in 2014, and we'll be reading some of those poems today. Now, these poems are intended to be funny, so if you feel inclined to laugh, please do. Don't hesitate. I'll now have the readers introduce themselves, and then we'll be starting with the poetry of Melissa Balmain. We'll start down to the right.
I'm Dr. Jan Loft, and I'm the Interim Vice President for Academic Affairs.
Hi, I'm Dr. Pat Brace, and I teach art history.
Hello, I'm Dr. Maureen Sanders Stout, and I'm Assistant Professor of Philosophy.
Hi, I'm Jessica Rockman, and I am a junior creative writing / literature student.
I'm Dani Kroll. I'm a junior and a creative writing / literature major as well.
I'm Ruth Thompson. I'm a professor of English here, and I also teach yoga at the Y, so come on down. And there's yoga under the stars here at SMSU in the Upper Conference Center tomorrow at 8 p.m. I think you get like a glowy bracelet, so love to see you there.
Hi, I'm Marianne Sarzana. I'm Assistant Professor of English, and I'm the Director of the Creative Writing Program here.
Walking in on people. It's just a talent that I've always had, though not, thank God, around my mom and dad. They did the deed, as living proof I knew it, and yet I somehow never saw them do it. The same cannot be said, regrettably, of roommates, colleagues, hosts, or 2 or 3 romantic pairs whose panting thrusts and reaches were glimpsed by me on isolated beaches. Of poets who, shared sitting rooms be damned, I witnessed at a conference and jammed. Of friends rebounding from a recent breakup. And once 2 mimes in nothing but their makeup. They goggled up at me with mute surprise, their mouths dramatic O's that matched their eyes, his hands suspended in midair to pet her. Marcel Marceau could not have done it better. Why me? Why all this unintended shock? I wish I knew. I don't forget to knock. I never tiptoe like a ballerina. And still, I'm like some peeping Thomasina. My consolation is I get for free a version of what some folks pay to see. Instead of porno actors in flagranti, I'm bound to catch a glimpse of someone's auntie. And though it will humiliate us both while prompting an unconscionable oath from Uncle Irving, Archibald, or Maury, it's guaranteed to make a better story.
Bird in the hand. It doesn't caw or hunt or fly. It can't peck anybody's eye or even grow a single lousy feather. One clod, no match for any tom. It's stranded on a leafless palm, regardless of the season, time, or weather. Yet what's the bird that, all alone, sticks up for you when jibes have flown and you don't care to verbalize or linger? When someone's mocked you to your face or cut you off or swiped your space, what bird? The one that moonlights as a finger.
Daredevil, a memory of jackass star Ryan Dunn. When it came to wild stunts, he was second to none. So who would have predicted that Ryan M. Dunn would die not by catapult, cannon, or cougar, or Russian roulette with a dung-coated Luger, or by tying himself to a runaway moose, or snorting ground glass off a lion's caboose, but by drinking and driving. How could he succumb to an impulse so achingly, commonly dumb?
New parent at a party. I'm sure it's great weed, but I don't want to toke. It could never be potent enough. And the same goes for speed, LSD, shrooms, and coke. Johnny Walker, espresso, and snuff. What I long for instead is a drug you can't score by the gram or the pint or the lid. All you need is a bed and 8 hours or more, no distractions, no noise, and no kid.
Villanelle. Whenever I wake up and don't feel well, I like to read a woman's magazine. I know that I can count on Vogue or Elle, Cosmo or Glamour, Self or Mademoiselle, instead of pills, elixirs, or caffeine whenever I wake up and don't feel well. Page 8 has bathing suits that look just swell if you're 6 foot and live on lean cuisine. I know that I can count on Vogue or Elle. Page 9's a list of wardrobe musts that sell at reasonable prices for a queen whenever I wake up and don't feel well. Page 10 says how to age, yet stay a belle. The photo, it's a model of 18. I know that I can count on Vogue or Elle. To make my time in bed such a living hell. I'm out of there in 60 seconds clean. Whenever I wake up and don't feel well, I know that I can count on Vogue or Elle.
Enfant terrible. There's a truth that most people prefer to keep quiet, unshared with their friends and their kin, but it's high time that everyone cease to deny it. A newborn is ugly as sin. You can dress it in taffeta, ribbon, and lace. You can scrub it each hour of the day. You can name it Belinda, Veronica, Grace. It'll still look like rump roast manqué. Any puppy or kitten is sweeter by far. Any lamb, piglet, gosling, or foal. Even marmoset infants make ours seem subpar. So, if having's a baby your goal, don't expect me to call the thing darling or cutie or precious or dear little elf. Only one child has ever been born a real beauty. The one I gave birth to myself.
To a toddler. If you were less demanding, I'd write novels. I'd paint and sew and keep a spotless house. My deeds would be as bold as Vaclav Havel's. I'd speak Chinese and know the works of Strauss. My yard would not have weeds and gophers in it. Each morning I would swim, bake bread, squeeze juice. I'd make the most of every single minute. Thank God I finally got a good excuse.
Epiphany while reading People magazine. If I could trade the things I own for all the stuff you've got, the gabled mansion on the Rhone, the 59-foot yacht, the gardens, pools, and tennis courts, the Prada evening dress, the chef who makes you salmon torts, would I find happiness? Would I be glad to leave the house that's kept me snug for years, to lose the shrubs I've pruned, the blouse I found half-priced at Sears? Would I be gleeful as I fled my friendly neighborhood to join the upper crust instead? You bet your ass I would.
Fed up. Red Riding Hood's grandma had chest pains galore, cholesterol looming at 244, and blood pressure spikes. Though she kept it all quiet, her daughter found out and imposed a strict diet. No more would she bundle Red off with a pail of cookies for Granny. Instead, she sent kale and casseroles, ranging from foul to insipid, because she had stripped them of every known lipid. One day, Red arrived to find Granny in bed. "Come closer, my dumpling," the dowager said. "Forget the lame cover-up tale that came later. No wolf gobbled Red. It was Granny who ate her."
Prayer for a husband. Dear God, I've seen him die 1,000 times while choking on a sandwich at his desk. He dials for help but cannot speak. Grotesque. While making foolishly abstracted climbs, nose deep in Socrates, he skips a stair. While doing 80 on Route 81, or getting mugged by wackos with a gun, or jogging past an irritable bear. These deaths are fictional, admittedly, mere figments when I'm waiting and he's late, a worrywart's compulsory ideal. But still, I'm optimistic, you'll agree, with all that he suffered in my mind of day. You needn't bother killing him for real.
Love poem. The afternoon we left our first apartment, we scrubbed it down from ceiling to parquet. Who knew the place could smell like lemon muffins? It suddenly seemed nuts to move away. The morning someone bought our station wagon, it gleamed with wax and every piston purred. The car looked like a centerfold and hot rod. Too late, we saw that selling was absurd. And then there was the freshly tuned piano we passed along to neighbors with a wince. We told ourselves we'd find one even better. Instead, we've missed its timbre ever since. So if God help us, we are ever tempted to ditch our marriage when it's lost its glow, let's give the thing our finest spit and polish, and having learned our lesson, not let go.
Now let's switch to the poems of Gail White.
The panda. The panda bear was never meant to flourish on this continent. At best, it can digest a few green shoots of succulent bamboo. Its young are born so very small, it needs to be marsupial. The animal so plainly jinxed should properly have been extinct, yet no fundraising propaganda works half as well as Save the Panda. Why? Because we can't resist this furry, fat contortionist whose 2 heart-melting blackened eyes could win the Hallmark Cuteness Prize. The moral is, If you've a cause for which you need the world's applause and pots of cash, or all is lost, be cute. Be cute at any cost.
And I'll give a little background information on the next for anyone who doesn't know it. Abelard was a medieval philosopher who seduced one of his young female students, and her uncle, in revenge, had him castrated.
Not this next poem, but the next one.
Epitaph of the Unknown Poet. When I was roaring healthy, it made my spirit groan to see what fools were famous while I was all unknown. But now I'm dead and buried, my own immortal fame and that of William Shakespeare look very much the same.
Abelard, or Love Gone Wrong. My altered cat runs out the door and rackets round the yard. Because he'll be a stud no more, I call him Abelard. But when he meets a lady cat with soft and yielding paws, he doesn't quite remember that he's not the man he was. He climbs her back and bites her neck. He recollects the game, but still he needs a fatal check. Results are not the same. How often, when romances end, it puzzles cats and men to know why last night's lady friend will not step out again. Now other cats with raucous glee cry out their mating song, while Abelard sits home with me and wonders what went wrong.
The librarian wishes she had lived in the 1920s. That was the life, bobbed hair and bathtub gin. Women who smoked and shocked the bourgeoisie by living with their lovers, not in sin, but just in honest camaraderie. Dorothy Parker held her own with men at the Algonquin and in print or bed. And de Millay took drugs and lovers, then went home to drain the sonnets from her head. But I was born in 1945, when girls were good and children followed rules. I learned the tricks I needed to survive and made a life of buying books for fools. No gazer pierces my facade and sees the wild young flapper skirts above her knees.
Simone de Beauvoir to Sartre. I never make unpleasant scenes. We're free of bourgeois bonds, which means that you, my love, are wholly free to relish infidelity. I do not cry when every spring you have your adolescent fling with some enchanting ingenue, for am not I as free as you? And I shall tell biographers we had two freedoms, his and hers, and freedom made our love endure. We were so damnably mature.
Song of a Rolling Stone. When I was 5 and 30, I thought that I was old. My waist no longer sylph-like, my hair no longer gold. 'Twas useless to console me or offer me champagne, for I was 5 and 30, and death was on my brain. When I was 5 and 40, my heart was full of fears. When I was 5 and 50, I would not count the years. But there have been subtle changes in nature's paradigm. Now I am 5 and 60, and I've got lots of time.
The Cynic and the Baby. Marlene has brought her baby, 8 weeks old, to meet her office mates, who duly gurgle and exclaim, "Oh, what a darling! What's her name? Look at those eyes. Oh, could I hold her a minute? She's how old?" It seems a small and noseless pulp, able for skills to blink and gulp. But in its flannel sheath I see the upstart shoots are planting me. The brain inside that fuzzy head will read and brood when I am dead, and up its checks and order drinks, and say the opposition stinks. and ponder love and fame and chance while I am fertilizing plants. They're coming, a relentless tide, babies that sweep my life aside. Youth can't be stopped, no law, no creed will stultify this urge to breed. But to the last I can refuse. Assent to lives I did not choose. Refuse to cry, how soft, how cute, when knives are hacking at my root. Baby and death have toothless jaws. Each smiles, but oh, it gnaws, it gnaws.
To my lover, after our discussion of poetry. When you came in last night and said, "What's that you're writing?" and I answered, "Poetry," you told me that I couldn't feed the cat, much less indulge in truffles and chablis on what I earn by that. So now I know you need a higher income in your bed, a lawyer or a lady CEO. The worst you think of me has now been said. While you're at work tomorrow, I'll clean house, pack luggage, do the laundry and my hair. When you come home, you'll find that I've moved out, taking my unproductive life elsewhere. We're through, my love, but since you knew no better, I've left this poem and not a Dear John letter.
Post-diagnosis. So now they know. She, and not he, will say who gets the cuckoo clock, will give away the books, the silverware. So much to give from two shared lives, but only she will live. His picture of her future, tender, brave, devoted, always ends beside his grave. When his life ends, he feels, and she concurs, nothing will go on happening in hers. But she must look ahead, and while he sees a mist of sweetly mournful memories in that remote expression on her face, she sees new uses for his closet space.
And now we'll turn to the poems of Julie Kane.
Looker. This morning in the grocery store, I felt the bag boys stare the way men used to stare at me, down to my underwear. Was it the 7 pounds I'd lost? I struck a sexy pose. When I got home, the mirror showed a black smudge on my nose.
And in the next poem, I can attest through experience to the reality of the hissing that's described in it. This is called post-feminism. If male professors called a female girl back then, we women in the class would hiss. These days, if anybody calls me that, I want to give the guy a big fat kiss.
Lifestyles of the rich and famous. I get my house cleaned once a week. I get my hair done twice. A host of chefs bring fine cuisine, my taste buds to entice. I must have married rich, you guess, on figure, looks, and charm. The truth is much less glamorous. I fell and broke my arm.
Excuses, excuses. A death in the family, a bout with the flu, a friend with a flat who's depending on you. Believable boyfriend, your voice a caress. If you were my student, I'd smell the BS.
Plea bargain. Inside the scanner's tunnel, you swear that you will be a candidate for sainthood if spared from the big C. You'll help to feed the hungry, you'll comfort the bereft, you'll minister to lepers if there are any left. But when the doctors tell you that you are in the pink, the terms that you agreed to seem rather harsh. You think, perhaps another kitten, a shelter rescue pet, or a pound of fair trade coffee would settle up the debt.
Status update. On Facebook for relationship, you check the box for mated. Then he signs up as single and oh crap, you should have waited. As soon as his computer's down or he's inebriated, he'll update, hoping he won't see "You're now, it's complicated."
Bad boys. Good boys are bad, and bad boys good at making out and dancing slow. That's why all girls in maidenhood prefer the latter kind of beau.
And how that brings me back. The best defense. The day I handed essays back, I faced her blazing eyes. "You're wrong about me, Dr. Kane. I didn't plagiarize." But it was copied word for word. "I can't explain," she pleaded. "I gave it to my friend to write, and she's the one who cheated."
I should mention that Julie Kane is of Irish background and has bright red hair. This poem is called "Men Who Love Redheads." You can pick one out in the crowd by the way he jerks his head when an Irish setter passes, drawn to that shade of red, or the pickup line he utters, even to Raggedy Ann. If all your freckles merged, do you know you'd have a tan? There are times you miss the clues till you wake up after sex to behold the nightstand photo with his red-haired kids and ex. Then you know, for all your charms, he was only caught in the pull of that least-known force of physics, as a red flag draws a bull. Some obsessives like girls plump or missing a limb or two, but the men hung up on redheads are the men who prey on you. Compared to men as a whole, their numbers are very small. Yet without their kind in the world, you might never get laid at all.
Water pressure. My neighbor can't water his lawn when I shower, and I cannot bathe when he sprays. When he gets a yen to start soaking his flowers, my armpits might smell for days. I've gone to the mayor, but this is the South. The workmen would rather not sweat. They're deaf to complaints from a feminine mouth, and no one's been bribed for it yet. One time I was coated in soap like a lamb, in ringlets of woolly white hair, when all of a sudden the water, goddamn, cut off with me sudsy and bare. I threw on a towel and ran out the door. Let's hope that it covered my crotch. I meant to ask nicely for 5 minutes more, but set off our neighborhood watch.
Don't fall for a poet who is Scottish. Don't fall for a poet who's Scottish, no matter how tallish and hottish. He'll promise to write, then drop out of sight, though you liked him an awfully lottish.
And that concludes our meeting. Thank you very much for coming today.